Psychology of Money Book Summary. One needs to understand the psychology of money to earn money and build wealth in the long term. I often see people having bad relationships with money. This book will surely act as a way of clearing some mental blocks and giving abundance to the life of a person. I just finished reading this book, and here are some key points to note. The premise of this book is that doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave. And behavior is hard to teach, even to really smart people. A genius who loses control of their emotions can be a financial disaster. The opposite is also true. Ordinary folks with no financial education can be wealthy if they have a handful of behavioral skills that have nothing to do with formal measures of intelligence. Financial outcomes are driven by luck, independent of intelligence and effort. That's true to some extent, and this book will discuss it in further detail. Or, two, and I think more common, that financial success is not hard science. It's a soft skill where how you behave is more important than what you know. I call this soft skill the psychology of money. 18 points to understand the psychology of money. No one's crazy, you know stuff about money that I don't, and vice versa. You go through life with different beliefs, goals, and forecasts than I do. That's not because one of us is smarter than the other or has better information. It's because we've had different lives shaped by different and equally persuasive experiences. We all think we know how the world works. But we've all only experienced a tiny sliver of it. Awareness is everything, and so is with making and keeping money. Luck and risk are siblings. They are both the reality that every outcome in life is guided by forces other than individual effort. They are so similar that you can't believe in one without equally respecting the other. They both happen because the world is too complex to allow 100% of your actions to dictate 100% of your outcomes. They are driven by the same thing: you are one person in a game with 7 billion other people and infinite moving parts. The accidental impact of actions outside of your control can be more consequential than the ones you consciously take. Never enough. There is no reason to risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need. It's one of those things that's as obvious as it is overlooked. Confounding compounding: if something compounds, if a little growth serves as the fuel for future growth, a small starting base can lead to results so extraordinary they seem to defy logic. It can be so logic-defying that you underestimate what's possible, where growth comes from, and what it can lead to. And so it is with money. Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy, good investing is not necessarily about making good decisions. It's about consistently not screwing up. Getting money and keeping money are two different skills. Getting money requires taking risks, being optimistic, and putting yourself out there. But keeping money requires the opposite of taking risks. It requires humility and fear that what you've made can be taken away from you just as fast. It requires frugality and an acceptance that at least some of what you've made is attributable to luck, so past success can't be relied upon to repeat indefinitely. Tails: you win, you can be wrong half of the time and still make a fortune. Anything that is huge, profitable, famous, or influential is the result of a tail event, an outlying one in thousands or millions of events. And most of our attention goes to things that are huge, profitable, famous, or influential. When most of what we pay attention to are the result of a tail, it's easy to underestimate how rare and powerful they are. Freedom: controlling your time is the highest dividend money pays. The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up early in the morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. A common denominator of happiness is that people want to control their lives. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with what you want, for as long as you want, is priceless. It is the highest dividend money pays. Man in the car paradox: no one is impressed with your possessions as much as you are. The letter I wrote after my son was born said, you might think you want an expensive car, a fancy watch, and a huge house. But I am telling you, you don't. What you want is respect and admiration from other people, and you think having expensive stuff will bring it. It almost never does, especially from the people you want to respect and admire you. If respect and admiration is your goal, be careful how you seek it. Humility, kindness, and empathy will bring you more respect than horsepower ever will. Wealth is what you don't see. Spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money. Wealth is hidden. It is income not spent. Wealth is an option not yet taken to buy something later. Its value lies in offering you options, flexibility, and growth to one day purchase stuff that you could right now. If wealth is what you don't spend, what good is it? Save money. The only factor you can control generates one of the only things that matter. How wonderful. Building wealth has little to do with your income or investment returns and a lot to do with your savings rate. Past a certain level of income, what you need is just what sits below your ego. One of the most powerful ways to increase your savings isn't to raise your income. It is to raise your humility. Savings can be created by spending less. You can spend less if you desire less. And you will desire less if you care less about what other people think of you. As I often argue in this book, money relies more on psychology than finance. Having control over your time and options is becoming one of the most valuable currencies in the world. That is why one must save money. Reasonable rational. Aiming to be mostly reasonable works better than trying to be coldly rational. Surprise. History is the study of change, ironically used as a map of the future. The correct lesson to learn from surprises is that the world is surprising. Room for error. The most important part of your plan is planning on your plan not going according to plan. The wisdom in having room for error is acknowledging that uncertainty, randomness, and chance unknown are an ever-present part of life. The only way to deal with them is by increasing the gap between what you think will happen and what can happen while still leaving you capable of fighting another day. Remember, the ability to do what you want, when you want, for as long as you want, has an infinite ROI. You'll change. Long-term planning is harder than it seems because people's goals and desires change over time. An underpinning of psychology is that people are poor forecasters of their future selves. We should avoid the extreme ends of financial planning. Compounding works when you can give a plan years or decades to grow. Balance at every point in your life becomes a strategy to avoid future regret and encourage endurance. Nothing's free, everything has a price, but not all prices appear on labels. You and me, beware of taking financial cues from people playing a different game than you are. The seduction of pessimism. Optimism sounds like a sales pitch. Pessimism sounds like someone trying to help you. Optimism is a belief that the odds of a good outcome are in your favor over time, even when there will be setbacks along the way. The simple idea that most people wake up in the morning trying to make things a little better and more productive than wake up looking to cause trouble is the foundation of optimism. Expecting things to be great means a best-case scenario that feels flat. Pessimism reduces expectations, narrowing the gap between possible outcomes and outcomes you feel great about. Maybe that's why it's so seductive. Expecting things to be bad is the best way to be pleasantly surprised when they're not. Which, ironically, is something to be optimistic about. When you will believe anything, most people, when confronted with something they don't understand, do not realize they don't understand it because they're able to come up with an explanation that makes sense based on their own unique perspective and experiences in the world, however limited those experiences are. We all want the complicated world we live in to make sense. So we tell ourselves stories to fill in the gaps of what are effectively blind spots. Charlie Munger put it well, the first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily.